A cold January night of 2026. The crowd is mixed. There are families. Men, women, and the elderly. They walk side by side. It is a show of protest, but the mood is calm. Until security forces approach, they raise their rifles and they begin to shoot. It is dark in Iran. The night has set in. It is dark in Iran because the internet has been cut. As night follows night, the people, they keep coming out to the streets. Thousands upon thousands. In Tehran, in Isfahan, in Kermanshah, in Mashhad. In towns with unfamiliar names, in indeterminate numbers, and with anonymous faces. It is the crowd. It is the people of Iran. Iran, known as Persia for much of history, has been a formidable force and a global superpower through much of its existence. The ancient empires of Iran contended with behemoth rivals in Greece, Rome, and India. Iran of history was recognized not just for its military power and systems of administration, but also for its civilizational contributions. The art, the language, the literature, and philosophy of Persia have enriched the culture of humanity. In 1953, a CIA-sponsored coup d'etat overthrew the nationalist government of Mohammad Mossadegh and firmly installed Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi as the dictatorial ruler of Iran. The era of martial law from 1953 to 1957 and the Baghdad Pact brought Iran closer to the US and its military and its economic aid.
Iran's in big trouble. It looks to me that the people are taking over certain cities that nobody thought were really possible just a few weeks ago. We're watching the situation very carefully. I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past, we will get involved. We'll be hitting them very hard where it hurts. And that doesn't mean boots on the ground, but it means hitting them very, very hard where it hurts.
The current round of protests in Iran began in the last days of the year 2025 when the Bazaris, shopkeepers of Tehran, took to the streets. They were expressing their anger at the dire economic situation they faced. There had been another sharp fall in the value of the Iranian currency, the rial, against the US dollar on the open market. Inflation soared to 40% as US-backed and Western-enforced sanctions over Iran's nuclear program intensified. The protests began to spiral after different groups and groupings of Iranians began to join in, demonstrating their unhappiness at the general state of their lives.
This is 47 years of anger. Anger from the economy to the environment to the repression to just walking outside and being told how you should dress and what you should be looking like. I mean, this is 47 years bottled up that has finally come out. But of course, the economic pressures are what triggered all of this. That was just the spark. But the whole system is being questioned right now. This is about regime change.
On the 16th of September 2022, a 22-year-old Kurdish Iranian woman by the name of Mahsa Amini died. She was being held in custody by Gasht-e-Irshad, the Islamic Republic of Iran's guidance patrol, or morality police in the eyes of the West. Pictures of the young woman's limp and lifeless body spread like wildfire across the internet and social media. Amini's death sparked widespread protests, beginning in her hometown of Saqqez in Kurdistan, Iran, rapidly spreading to Tehran and then across the country. For a brief moment in time, the Iranian world was turned upside down. School children defied teachers and ran officials out of their schools. Crowds made up of young men and women chased the police. People took control of their streets, and the crowds controlled entire neighborhoods.
اتفاقی که براشون افتاد خیلی تأسف برانگیز بود. اصلا در شأن یک شهروند ایرانی نباید باشه. اینجور برخوردها نه خواسته اسلام هستش، نه جزء فرهنگ ما هستش. به نظرم خیلی باید زیرساخت و یا این نحوه برخورد روش کار بشه.
In post-revolutionary Iran, women are often sentenced more harshly for misdeeds according to the law of the Islamic Republic. The position of women is not an equal one before the law. There have been cases when for a crime committed jointly by a man and a woman, the woman's sentence had been harsher, even her own testimony not seen as having equal weight to that of a man. In 2009, Nobel Peace Prize winner Shirin Ebadi left Iran after the government shut down her human rights center and targeted her family. Shirin Ebadi had been one of Iran's first female judges. After the revolution in 1979, she was dismissed. She opened a legal practice and began defending people who were being persecuted by the authorities. She was herself imprisoned in the year 2000 for speaking out against the government. But by 2009, she had to leave Tehran as Iran descended into turmoil. In the early afternoon of June 13th, the result of the presidential election was announced. The turnout had been a record-setting 85%, and it was declared that the sitting president, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, had won a second term. He had secured 63% of the votes. He was followed by Mir Hossein Mousavi with 34%. An estimated 3 million people came out on the streets of Tehran to protest the outcome. The crowd chanted, "Where is my vote?" In the run-up to the presidential elections, a former Prime Minister, Mir Hossein Mousavi, had come out of retirement to announce his candidacy. He was an architect and a painter and had been out of politics for nearly 2 decades. Iran's nascent civil society, reformers, The women's movement and student organizations suddenly found hope in him. Vast networks of supporters appeared all over the country, connected through the internet and social network sites. Wherever Mousavi went, he was met with large and enthusiastic crowds. But it was Ahmadinejad who was declared the winner, and the crowds kept gathering on the streets. Over the next 6 months, the protests evolved from a mass group of angry voters to a nationwide force demanding the democratic rights that had been the objective of the 1979 revolution. Every few weeks, protesters took to the streets to challenge the regime and its leadership. But by early 2010, Mousavi was under house arrest. Hundreds languished in prisons. At least 15 lives had been lost, and the regime had quashed displays of opposition. The crowd had dispersed. Iran's post-revolutionary history has been marked not by totalitarian stagnation, but rather by a constant struggle between the state and the people over the course the country should take. Over the past 4.5 decades, the Islamic Republic, with its theocratic and semi-republican system, has been immune to the demands for reform. Despite successive street protests and the gathering of huge crowds. Towards the end of the year 2018, the price of eggs in Iran began to shoot up. In the last week of that year, there was a sudden 50% increase, and that tipped the scale. The crowds once again hit the streets, fed up with the deteriorating economic situation and the hardship that the common citizen was facing. Nationwide leaderless protests shook Iran from December 28, 2017 through January 3, 2018. Corruption and unemployment were both at its peak. But as the protests intensified, political slogans against the regime were being heard. Over 10 days, the crowds made up of tens of thousands of Iranians, mainly the youth, took to the squares of mostly small cities to voice their anger and frustration. Around 20 protesters were killed and hundreds arrested before the crowds went home. In the 40th year of the Islamic Republic, new protests erupted across Iran, sparked by a surprising tripling of fuel prices. The 2019 protests spread nationwide as Iranians took to the streets, expressing frustration not only over economic hardship but also over systemic corruption, political repression, and lack of freedoms. The state responded with unprecedented violence. Hundreds were killed, more than 7,000 protesters were arrested, and untold numbers were injured. There have been allegations of undocumented detainments, disappearance, torture, and sentencing in closed-door trials. The protests of 2019 have been named Bloody November because of the violence by the state. 2019 was also the first time that the Iranian government enforced an internet blackout so that information about what was happening inside Iran did not leak out. In 2026, the government of Iran once again blocked internet.
Now, Iran proved to be ready for negotiation, for diplomacy. We have proved that in the past 20 years, in 2015, in 2025, every time. But it was the US who always escaped from diplomacy, who cut the diplomacy and opted for war. My message is, between war and diplomacy is a better way, although we don't have any positive experience from the United States.
It is dark in Iran. The protests continue, as do a near total communication blackout. Once again in Iran, the crowds have taken to the streets, refusing to back down. The death figures are already being said to be in their thousands. Videos and witness accounts from Iran slowly emerge, suggesting a deadly crackdown is taking place on the unrest. Footage smuggled out of Iran and now on social media show sobbing families and bloodied corpses. Maybe something will change in Iran. Maybe the crowds will write a different future. Maybe they will be beaten back. Maybe not. But a crowd knows that if the people stay united, then one day it will have its way. It has always been so. It will always be so.